Today we're going to learn how to solve literal equations, very similar to solving regular equations, except now we're going to be throwing variables in there, so a whole bunch of letters. Let me expand this. Okay, when I solve this first equation real quick, because this is a simple one that y'all are all pretty good at, I'm not going to really simplify. I'm going to leave it expanded. So if I want to get x by itself, the first thing I need to get rid of is that minus 5, so I do the opposite by adding 5. What I do on one side, I do on the other. Negative 5 plus 5 cancels, so that 2x drops down. And like I said, I want to leave this expanded, so I'm just going to write it as 13 plus 5. Which, yes, you could add that together to get 18, but right now let's leave it like this. Okay, so if I want x by itself, now I have to get rid of that coefficient, 2. So I need to divide both sides by 2. The 2 on top cancels the 2 on bottom, x falls down. On the other side, on the top, I had 13 plus 5, and on the bottom I had 2. And you could simplify that to get 9, but leave it this way for right now just because I want you to see the similarities between this one and then this literal equation right here. So same idea, we still want to get x by itself. So if I look on the side that has x, I also see the variable a and I see the variable b. Well, we know we have to get rid of b first. Same thing. How do you get rid of a minus b? You do the opposite by adding b. My negative b plus b cancels, so that ax falls down. And on the other side we have c plus b. So we're going to write that long ways. Just to be proper, let's write it in alphabetical order, b plus c. Remember, addition doesn't matter which one you have first, because 2 plus 3 or 3 plus 2, you get the same answer. So next, if I want x by itself, if I look on the side that has x, I know I need to get rid of that variable a. Well, they are touching, which means multiply. So to get rid of that a, I'm going to have to do the opposite and divide. And I'm going to divide by the coefficient, or the variable that I do not want. I know I do not want a, so that's what I'm dividing by. What I do on one side, I have to do to the other. My a on top cancels the a on bottom, so x drops down. Okay, on the left-hand side, I can't take a b plus c and divide by a and get anything else if I don't know what those variables stand for, so that all drops down. So what I want you to do is take a few moments to write down what have you noticed the similarities are, how are they alike between these two problems, and how are they different. So take a few moments and write down your response to that. Okay, if you need to press pause, do so, but I'm going to go ahead and keep moving. Okay, so I'm going to draw my line. And this problem tells me to solve for w. So that's the variable I'm trying to get by itself. So I look on the side that has the w, and I notice there is an L beside it. So that L is what I need to get rid of. Because they are touching, I'm going to do the opposite. Touching, that means multiplies. So the opposite is going to be to divide. And I'm going to divide by the variable I'm trying to get rid of. So I'm going to divide by L. What I do on one side, I do to the other. Okay, I can't take my a and divide by L and get anything else, so it's just going to drop down. On the other side, my L on top cancels the L on the bottom, so W drops down. Okay, so we did get the variable we wanted by itself, so we did all the work. All I'm going to do is write it properly now. So W equals A divided by L. Because if it was a multiple choice problem, that's the way you would see it written. Okay, problem number 2 wants us to solve for h. So I look on the side that has the h. I know I need to get rid of that variable b. b and h are touching, which means multiply, so the opposite is divide. And I'm going to divide by that variable I do not want. What I do on one side, I do on the other. On the left, my a divided by b will drop down. On the right side, the b on top cancels the b on bottom and h falls down. Okay, we wanted h by itself. We have it by itself, so we did all the work. Now let's just write it properly. H equals a divided by b. Problem number 3, it wants to have t by itself. So I look on the side that has the t, and I need to get rid of that variable r. R and t are touching, so I know that means multiply. So to do the opposite of multiply, I divide. And we're going to divide by that variable we do not want. We do not want r. What I do on one side, I do on the other. On the left, d divided by r will drop down. On the right, my r on top cancels the r on bottom and t drops. We wanted t by itself. T is now by itself, so I did all the work. Let's just write it properly. So I know t is equal to d divided by r. On problem number 4, it says I want t by itself, and notice that it says it's a one-step problem. It's a one-step problem even though I know there are 2 variables that I need to get rid of. And the reason it's only one stop is because p, r, and t are all touching, which means that's all being multiplied. P times r times t. So there's only one function going on here, and it's only multiplication. So the opposite of multiply is divide. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide by all the variables I do not want. Well, if I want t by itself, I know I do not want p and I do not want r. What I do on one side, I do to the other. On the left, that I divided by pr will drop. On the right, the pr that's on top cancels the pr that's on bottom, so t drops down. So we wanted the variable t by itself, which we do have it by itself, so we've done all the work. Let's just write it properly. I know t is equal to I divided by pr. On problem number 5, it wants h by itself, so this is very similar to the one we just did. Notice L, W, and H are all touching, so that means length times width times height. So since it's all multiply, I know I need to divide to get rid of the variables I do not want. I do not want L, and I do not want W. What I do on one side, I do to the other. So on the left, that V divided by LW will drop down. On the right, the LW on top cancels the LW on bottom, so the H drops down. So we wanted H by itself, so we got that, so all the work is done, so we're going to write it proper. H equals V divided by LW. Do me a favor, go ahead and scratch out number 6. I don't want to do that one right now. On number 7, it wants me to get c by itself, so I look on the side that has the c. I know I need to get rid of that minus s. Well, remember, when you want to get rid of something, you just do the opposite. The opposite of a minus s is a plus s. What we do on one side, we have to do to the other. Okay, on the left, we have m plus s, so that's just going to drop down, and I'm going to write it long ways like this. M plus s. On the other side, my minus s and my plus s cancel, so the c drops down. Remember, we wanted c by itself, which it is now, so we did all the work. So now let's write it properly. C is equal to m plus s. On number 8, we want v by itself. Okay, what makes this problem difficult is that if I want v by itself and it's on the bottom of a fraction, it's on the denominator, my first step isn't going to get rid of this m. What I want to do is I want to get this variable off of the bottom. So I have to do the opposite of this divide by v. Well, the opposite of a divide by v is a times v. What I do on one side, I do on the other. Okay, over here on the left it says v times d. So I know when I multiply variables together, you could just stick them together as vd, make them touch. But to be proper, we want to put it in alphabetical order. So v times d, I'm just going to put dv. Same thing as vd, but this is just proper. Put it in alphabetical order. Remember, just like addition, multiplication, you can flip-flop them around. vd, dv, they mean the same thing, but this is just proper. Okay, on the other side, my times v and my divide by v cancel and m drops down. Okay, I am not done yet because remember we are trying to get v by itself. And if I look on the side that has the v, I need to get rid of this variable d. Since they are touching, I know that means multiply, so the opposite of multiply is divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by d. The d on top cancels it on bottom, so v drops down. And on the other side, my m divided by d will drop. It's already improper. It's already properly written. Okay, so on this next problem, I want to get h by itself. So if I look on the side that has h, I know I need to get rid of this 1/2, and I know I need to get rid of this variable b. The first thing I'm going to get rid of is that 1/2. Remember, to get rid of a fraction, I tell you to multiply by the reciprocal, the reciprocal. What I do on one side, I do on the other. Well, guys, we know that 2 divided by 1 is just 2. So really all we're doing is multiplying both sides by 2. So on the left, 2 times a, just stick them together, 2a. On the right, the fraction and the reciprocal cancel, so the bh falls down. Remember, we're trying to get h by itself. So I look on the side that has the h, I need to get rid of this b. They're touching, which means multiply. So to get rid of it, I do the opposite. I'm going to divide. And I divide by that b, which is what I don't want. What I do on one side, I do on the other. Okay, so on the left, my 2a divided by b will fall down. On the right, my b on top cancels the b on bottom, so h falls down. We wanted h by itself, which it is now, so we did all the work. And now I'm just going to write it properly. So h equals 2a divided by b. 10 is very similar. This time we want to get b by itself. So if I look on the side that has b, I know I need to get rid of 1/3 and I need to get rid of h. Well, to get rid of a fraction, I tell you that we're going to multiply by the reciprocal, the reciprocal. What I do on one side, I have to do to the other. Well, guys, 3 divided by 1 is just 3. So really what we're doing is multiplying by 3 on both sides. So on the left, 3 times v is 3v. On the right, my 1/3 and the 3/1 cancel, so bh falls down. Remember, we're trying to get b by itself. So look on the side that has b. I know I still have to get rid of this h. Those two variables are touching, which means multiply, so the opposite would be to divide. Divide by that h, which we do not want. What I do on one side, I remember to do to the other. Okay, so my 3v divided by h will fall down. On the right side, my h on top cancels the h on bottom, so b drops. Notice we have b by itself, which is exactly what we wanted, so I'm just going to have to write it properly now. b equals 3v divided by h. On number 11, we want m by itself, so I look on the side that has my variable. I see there's 2 things here that we need to get rid of. So guys, whenever your variable is inside of a fraction, the first thing you want to do is get rid of that bottom part. How do I get rid of a divide by 2? The opposite of a divide by 2 is a multiply by 2. So remember, I don't want you to use a little x. Either use a dot or parentheses. I'll use a dot. I'm going to multiply by 2 on both sides. So on the left, 2 times k, remember you just stick them together, that's 2k. On the right, my times 2 and divide by 2 cancels, so mv squared falls down. So remember, we want m by itself. So I look on the side that has m, and I need to get rid of this v squared. This m and v squared are touching, which means multiply. So I know that I have to do the opposite, which is divide. And I divide by what I do not want, which is that v squared. What I do on one side, I do to the other. So my 2k divided by v squared will fall down. On the other side, the v squared on top cancels the v squared on bottom, so m drops. M is all by itself, which is exactly what I wanted, so let's just write it proper. M is equal to 2k divided by v squared. On number 12, we want b by itself this time, so I look on the side that has b. I know I need to get rid of c and d. So remember when I said when our variable is inside of a fraction, which it is, the first thing you want to get rid of is the bottom piece. So I want to get rid of the divide by d. The opposite of divide by d is multiply by d. What I do on one side, I do on the other. On this left, d times a, remember you just stick them together, so like dA. But remember, to be proper, since order and multiplication doesn't matter, you want to put it in alphabetical order. So d times a properly is AD. Remember, dA is the same thing, but this is just proper. Okay, my times d and my divide by d on the other side cancels, so that b plus c falls down. We are trying to get b by itself, so we continue to look on that side. And to get rid of, we have to get rid of a plus c. The opposite of a plus c is subtract c. What I do on one side, I remember to do on the other. On the left, we have AD subtract c, so I'm going to write that long ways as AD minus c. On the other side, my c's cancel, so b drops down. We wanted b by itself, now it is, so this is my answer. Let's just write it properly. b equals AD minus c. On this next one, I want w by itself, which means I need to get rid of these two l's and I need to get rid of these 2's. Remember, since this 2 is directly touching w, we're going to save this guy for last. So I need to get rid of these two l's. Alright, so to clear up some misconceptions, I have a lot of people that are trying to divide by 2l. Okay, well, I want 2l away from w. 2l and w are not being multiplied. If they were being multiplied, the 2l would be directly touching w, which it's not. So I don't want to divide. That's a positive 2l. So to get rid of a positive 2l, I do the opposite, which is a negative 2l. So I'm going to take away 2l from both sides. On the left side, I had p subtract 2l. So I'm going to write it long ways. P minus 2l. On the other side, 2l and a negative 2l cancel, so that 2w drops down. Okay, here's the difference. Now I want 2 away from this w. So when a number and a letter touches, I'm going to rewrite mine too real quick. So I'm trying to separate 2 from w. Well, the 2 and the w are being multiplied. So to separate these guys, the opposite of multiplication is division. That's when you divide. And we divide by that 2 that we do not want. On the left-hand side, I have p minus 2l, all divided by 2. On the other side, my 2 on top cancels the 2 on bottom, so w drops down. Notice we wanted w by itself, and we have it by itself, so all the work is done. Let's just write it properly. So I know w is equal to p minus 2l, all divided by 2. On this next example, we want y by itself. very similar to what we just did. So I look on the side that has y, I know I need to get rid of this ax, and I know I need to get rid of the b. So since b is touching it directly, save this for last. I need to get rid of this ax. So remember, I'm separating ax from y. Ax is not touching y, which means they're not being multiplied together. This ax and this y are not being multiplied, so do not divide. I want to get rid of this ax. It's a positive ax, so I need to subtract an ax. What I do on one side, I do to the other. My ax is canceled, so by drops down. On the other side, I had c, and I subtract ax, so I'm going to write it long ways, c minus ax. Someone earlier asked me, should I put this in alphabetical order? No, you can't. Addition, you can flip-flop what's on each side without changing it, but subtraction changes things. So I have to leave it in that order. Even though it's not in alphabetical order, it doesn't matter, because subtraction, you can't flip-flop what's on either side. If you do, it's going to change the answer. Okay, so remember, we were trying to get y by itself. So I still need to get rid of this variable b. Notice this b is touching the y. So since it's touching the y, that means multiply. So to get rid of it, I have to do the opposite. Divide. I'm going to divide by that b, which is what I don't want. What I do on one side, I do to the other. The b on top cancels the b on bottom, y falls down. On the other side, I had c minus ax all over b. And it's already written in proper form, so circle that. Excuse me. Okay, so on this one we're trying to get x by itself, so I look on the side with x. I know I need to get rid of this m, and I need to get rid of this b. So since m is touching the x directly, let's leave these alone for now. So the first thing I want to get rid of is a plus b. The opposite of a plus b is a minus b. What I do on one side, I do on the other. So on the left, I had a y and I subtracted b, so let's write that long ways. Y minus b. On the other side, my b's cancel, so that mx falls down. So we're still trying to get that x by itself, which means I need to get rid of this m. Since these are touching each other, that means multiply. The opposite of multiply is divide. And I'm going to divide by that m, which I do not want. What I do on one side, I do on the other. On the left, the y minus b all over m will drop down. And on the right side, my m on top cancels the m on bottom, so x drops down. We have x all by itself, which is what we wanted, so let's write our final answer properly. I know x is equal to y minus b all divided by m. Alright, on 16 I want t by itself, so I notice I want to get rid of this p, and I also want to get rid of this pr that's touching it. So since pr is touching it, leave it alone for now, let's get rid of this p. Okay, so let's not make a mistake. This p right here is not directly touching t, so these are not being multiplied together, so let's not divide. To get rid of this p, I notice that it's a positive, so to get rid of a positive, we do the opposite, so I'm going to subtract p. What I do on one side, I do on the other. So on the left, I had an a, and I subtracted p, so a minus p. On the other side, my p minus p cancels, and the PRT falls down. So remember, we want t by itself. This p, r, and t are all touching. That means multiply. So the opposite of multiply is divide, and I'm going to divide by what I do not want. I do not want that p, and I do not want that r. What I do on one side, I do on the other. On the left, my a minus p divided by pr will drop down. On the other side, the pr that's on top cancels the pr that's on bottom, so t drops. Okay, t is all by itself, which is what we wanted. So all the work is done. So let's write it proper. I know t is equal to a minus p all divided by p r. All right. So on this one, we want f by itself, so I look on the side with f. I know I need to get rid of this 5/9 fraction. I need to get rid of this minus 32. Okay, so you see how this minus 32 is on the inside of the parentheses? Okay, well, anything in the inside of the parentheses is off game. I can't touch it until I can get rid of what's outside. So the first thing I have to get rid of is this 5/9. Remember, to get rid of a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. So if the fraction is 5/9, I need to multiply by 9/5. What I do on one side, I do on the other. Well, I know that 9/5 times c is just 9/5c. On the other side, the fraction and the reciprocal cancel, so the f minus 32 drops down. So remember, we want f by itself. So I look on the side that has f. I know I have to get rid of a minus 32. The opposite of a minus 32 is a plus 32. God dang it. What I do on one side, I do on the other. So I had 9/c and I add 32, so I'm going to have to write that long ways as 9/5c plus 32. On the other side, my 32's cancel, so f drops down. So we do have f all by itself, which is what we wanted. So all the work is done. Let's just write it properly. So I know my final answer is f is equal to 9/5c plus 32. Okay, so we want b1 by itself, so I look on the side that has b1, which means I have to get rid of this 1/2, I have to get rid of this h, and I have to get rid of this b2. Okay, remember, anything in the parentheses is off limits until I can get rid of this stuff out here. I'm going to get rid of the fraction first. So to get rid of a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. So if the fraction is 1/2, the reciprocal is 2/1. What I do on one side, I do on the other. Well, guys, we know that 2 divided by 1 is just 2, so really we're just multiplying both sides by 2. On the left, 2 times a is 2a. On the right, the fraction of the reciprocal cancels, so the h times b1 plus b2 drops down. Remember, this is what we're trying to get by itself. So before, still, I have the inside of the parentheses is off limits until I get rid of this h. So we know parentheses means multiply. That says h times this stuff. So to get rid of that h, I do the opposite. I'm going to divide. I'm going to divide by that h I do not want. So my 2a over h falls down. The h on top cancels the h on bottom, so b1 plus b2 drops. Alright, almost there, guys. I want b1 by itself, so I have to get rid of this plus b2. The opposite of a plus is a subtract. So I'm going to take away b2. What I do on one side, I do on the other. Okay, so on that left-hand side, I had a 2a over h, and then I subtracted b2. On the other side, my b2's cancel, so b1 drops down. Notice b1 is all by itself, which is exactly what we wanted. All the work is done. So I'm just going to write it properly real quick. Know that b1 is equal to 2a divided by h, then you subtract b2. Alright, guys. Later.